They thought I'd stay broken. But they didn't know what patience can do to a man like me. Graduation day is supposed to be clean, simple. You walk across a stage, shake a hand, and your past gets stitched into a future. I remember the heat under my gown, the way the tassel brushed my cheek when my name echoed through the speakers. I remember the clapping. I remember my mother's phone held high, my father's stiff smile, my sister waving like this moment belonged to her too. It did, just not the way I understood yet. I'd worked nights for this. Stock rooms that smelled like cardboard and sweat. Early mornings with coffee that tasted like burnt hope. Loans I signed without reading too closely because I didn't have a choice. Every time I asked about help, my parents said the same thing. We're tight right now. You're strong. You'll figure it out. I figured it out. After the ceremony, we gathered near the steps. Cameras clicked. Hugs. Someone joked about how fast the years fly. Then my aunt laughed and said, "At least you won't have loans like your sister. Your parents covered all that." I didn't hear anything else for a second. Covered all that. I smiled because my face didn't know what else to do. My mother's hand froze mid-air. My father cleared his throat like he could cough the truth away. My sister looked at the ground. Nobody corrected my aunt. Nobody said, "That's not true." I nodded, said something polite, posed for another picture. Inside, something split, not loud, not dramatic. A quiet tear down the middle of a belief I'd carried since childhood. That fairness would arrive eventually, like a late train. It didn't arrive. It left. When we got home, the house felt smaller. Walls closer. I went to my room and stared at the diploma on my bed. Bachelor's degree. First in my family. Proof of something. I thought about every skipped meal, every shift taken because family comes first. I thought about how nobody thought to mention this sooner. That night I didn't sleep. I counted breaths and told myself there had to be an explanation. There always is. But the silence downstairs told me there wasn't an apology coming. I learned something that day. Sometimes the truth doesn't shout. It waits until you're wearing your best clothes and smiling for pictures. And then it steps into the frame. When you learn the truth, your childhood rearranges itself. The next morning, I poured cereal and listened to the spoon scrape the bowl. My mother moved around the kitchen like normal. My father read the paper. Nobody brought it up. That was the answer right there. Silence as policy. I replayed moments I'd filed away as normal. The time I asked for help with books and was told to get a second job. The way my sister's dorm room photos looked like magazine spreads while I slept on a mattress I found on Craigslist. The pep talks about character. Struggle builds men. Funny how struggle was gendered in my house. Funny how it always landed on me. Later that day, my uncle pulled me aside. He didn't mean to say anything heavy. He just said, "Your parents had some savings back then. They weren't broke." I felt the floor steady under my feet. That's what betrayal does, it clarifies. So it wasn't money. It was choice. I didn't confront anyone. I started watching, listening, noticing how often my name came up when something needed fixing. How my sister's plans were discussed like investments, and mine like gambles. How love showed up as expectation. That night, I wrote numbers on a legal pad. Tuition I paid. Hours I worked. Interest rates. I wasn't angry yet. Anger is noisy. This was quieter. This was inventory. I remembered my father telling me, "Don't keep score." He was right. I wasn't keeping score. I was keeping receipts. The realization settled in my chest like a stone. They didn't forget me. They decided. And decisions have consequences, even the ones you pretend don't exist. By the end of the week, I knew something else too. If I asked for an explanation, I'd get a story. If I waited, I'd get the truth. So I waited. It wasn't what my sister said. It was what she didn't. We sat in her car because the house felt too loud, even though no one was speaking. The engine was off, windows cracked, late afternoon sun cutting across the dashboard. She kept rubbing the steering wheel like it might tell her what to say. "So, you okay?" she asked. I looked at her and realized something painful. She genuinely didn't understand why I was hurt. That stung more than anger ever could. I asked her straight. Did you know Mom and Dad paid for your college? She hesitated, then nodded. Slow, careful. Yeah. My chest tightened. All of it. Yeah, tuition, housing, books. They said you didn't want help. That you wanted to do it on your own. That sentence landed wrong. Not loud, just wrong. Like a story told too smoothly. I laughed once, dry. I asked for help. More than once. She stared forward. They told me you were proud of handling it yourself. That's how lies survive. They wear the right clothes. I asked her why she never mentioned it. She said she didn't want to cause drama. Said she assumed I knew. Said a lot of things that all sounded like fear. Fear of rocking the family boat. Fear of losing her place in it. I wasn't mad at her the way movies show anger. I was tired. Tired of being the one everyone stood on to keep balance. When we went back inside, my parents asked if everything was okay. I said yes. That was my last lie to protect them. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into my loan account. Numbers stared back at me. Refunds, transfers, dates, and suddenly memory clicked into place. My struggle hadn't been invisible. It had been convenient. Money always leaves fingerprints if you look long enough. I didn't go looking for revenge. I went looking for clarity. I needed to know if this was neglect or something worse. I started small. Old emails, bank statements, loan records. I learned how to read between numbers, how to see intention in timing. Refunds that landed, then disappeared. Withdrawals I didn't remember approving. I traced one payment to a utility bill, another to a home repair from years back. Same handwriting, my father's. I sat there staring at the screen, heart slow, mind sharp. They didn't just refuse to help me. They used me, not maliciously, not dramatically, quietly, comfortably, the way people use things they believe will never say no. When I asked them about it, I didn't accuse. I asked gently, "Do you remember this refund from sophomore year?" My mother frowned. My father shrugged. We needed help back then. It was temporary. Temporary. Like my exhaustion. Like my debt. They said they meant to pay me back. They said family helps family. They said a lot of things people say when they've already decided whose burden matters less. I printed everything. Slid it into a folder. Wrote my name on the tab. That folder wasn't anger. It was leverage. And for the first time in my life, I realized something chilling. They didn't see me as a son who needed support. They saw me as a backup plan who wouldn't complain. That realization didn't break me. Steadied me. The moment I stopped explaining myself, they felt it. I didn't slam doors. I didn't argue. I didn't even change my tone. I just stopped doing what I had always done. Filling gaps before anyone noticed they were there. I stopped coming home early. Stopped answering calls on the first ring. When my mother asked how my day was, I said, "Good," and left it there. No details.
No emotion el labor.
That alone made her uneasy. People who rely on your availability feel threatened by your silence. My father started watching me differently, like he was trying to measure how far I drifted. He made comments about responsibility, about family sticking together. I nodded and kept moving. Inside, something steady was forming. Not anger, structure. I opened my own account and redirected my income. Changed passwords. Froze my credit. Quiet actions that don't announce themselves but change everything. I learned that safety doesn't come from trust. It comes from preparation. The house grew tense. Conversations felt rehearsed. My mother cooked more, smiled harder. My sister asked if I was mad. I told her I was focused. That word scared them. One night after dinner, my father casually mentioned a major expense coming up. He spoke like we were already aligned, like my help was assumed. He didn't ask. He framed. I listened. I didn't react. That was new. That night, lying in bed, I realized something uncomfortable but freeing. They weren't worried about losing me emotionally. They were worried about losing access. And once I saw that clearly, I knew the next move wouldn't be theirs. They didn't apologize. They asked. We sat at the dining table, the same one where I'd grown up shrinking myself to keep peace. My father cleared his throat. My mother folded her hands, eyes hopeful in a way that felt rehearsed. They explained the situation: numbers, urgency, pressure. My degree came up like proof of readiness. Like my success was a tool meant to be handed back. "You're in a better position now," my father said. "This is what family does." I noticed what wasn't said. No acknowledgement of the past.
No επάλεγη.
No recognition of imbalance. Just expectation. I listened carefully, asked questions, took notes, stayed calm. That calm made them comfortable. They mistook it for agreement. "We'll figure it out together," my mother said. I nodded. "I'll review everything." That sentence felt like power. Later that night, I opened my folder again, added a clean sheet of paper. At the top I wrote, boundaries, what I would no longer fund, what I would no longer explain, what I would no longer sacrifice to be seen as worthy. I realized then that the graduation wasn't the turning point. This was, because this was the first time I understood that love in my family had always come with a price, and I had finally decided to stop paying it. That's when I told them the part they weren't ready to hear. We sat at the dining table again, but the air felt different, thicker, like the house itself knew something irreversible was about to happen. My parents sat across from me, bodies angled forward, already leaning into expectation. They thought this meeting was about logistics. They were wrong. I placed the folder on the table slowly, not aggressively, just enough for them to notice it existed. My father glanced at it once, then back at me. My mother's eyes stayed fixed on my face, searching for signs of softness. I opened the folder and began calmly. I showed them the loan refunds, the transfers, the dates that lined up perfectly with moments the family needed help. I didn't accuse. I explained. That made it worse for them. My father tried to interrupt. I raised one finger, not rude, just firm. "Let me finish." That alone stunned him. I explained that my education had been treated like shared property, that my struggle had been repackaged as character building while my sister's comfort was called support. I told them I finally understood the pattern. Then I said it. "I won't be helping." Silence fell so fast it felt physical. I continued before they could recover. I told them my credit was locked. My accounts were separate. My finances were no longer accessible to anyone but me. Everything was legal. Everything was final. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for the edge of the table. My father's face drained of color, his jaw tightening as if authority might reappear if he clenched hard enough. "This isn't how family works," he said. I met his eyes, calm, steady. "This is how boundaries work." They tried guilt. I acknowledged it. They tried fear. I declined it. They tried reminding me of sacrifices. I stayed silent. "I'm not angry," I said finally. "I'm just done being available." That was the moment their faces went pale, because they realized the dependable son had stepped out of reach, permanently. The panic didn't explode all at once. Crept in. The first missed call came before sunrise. Then another. Then a message that started with, "Please call us when you wake up." By noon, my phone felt heavier in my pocket, buzzing with urgency I no longer belonged to. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fix it. I read the messages slowly, apologies wrapped in fear, promises stitched together with desperation. My mother's words came in long paragraphs, emotional, circular. My father's were shorter, clipped, unfamiliar, like a man learning a new language called uncertainty. I replied hours later. One sentence. Polite, calm, no emotion to grab onto. That scared them. Anger they understood. Silence with boundaries? That was new. My sister showed up at my door that evening. Eyes red, shoulders tight. She said Mom wasn't sleeping. Said Dad kept pacing the house like he was waiting for bad news to arrive. "The family feels like it's falling apart," she whispered. I let her cry. I held her. I told her I loved her. And then I told her the truth. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm protecting myself." She asked if I could just help this once. Just enough to calm things down. Just enough to keep the peace. I shook my head. Slowly, carefully. Peace that costs me isn't peace, I said. She didn't argue after that. When she left, the apartment felt quiet in a way I'd never known. No tension humming in the walls. No unspoken expectations waiting for me to notice them. I cooked dinner. Simple food. Sat alone. Ate slowly. Meanwhile, deadlines arrived for my parents without mercy. Bills don't care about intentions. Consequences don't pause for regret. For the first time, they had to face reality without me cushioning the fall. That night, lying in bed, I realized something important. They were panicking because control was gone. I was calm because freedom had finally arrived. And once you taste that kind of peace, you understand. Going back would cost more than leaving ever did. We met one last time because they asked, not because I owed them anything. I chose the place carefully. A quiet cafe halfway between our worlds. Neutral. Public. No walls soaked in family history. No home field advantage for anyone. When I arrived, they were already seated. Hands folded. Eyes tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Consequences age people differently. My mother spoke first. She apologized again. Voice trembling. Words tumbling over each other. She said she never meant to hurt me. Said she thought I was strong enough to handle it. Said she didn't realize how much it cost me. I listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't correct her. Sometimes people need to hear themselves. My father followed. His apology was quieter. Less emotional. Harder for him. He spoke about pressure, about making choices for the good of the family. He avoided the word unfair. Then they asked the question they'd been circling. What will it take to fix this? I took a breath and answered honestly. It doesn't get fixed, I said. It gets redefined. I told them what I could offer moving forward. Respect, honesty, and distance. A relationship without financial expectations. Without me being the silent backup plan. Without guilt as currency. They tried to negotiate. Promised change. Promised transparency. Promised gratitude. I listened and repeated myself. The line didn't move. I told them I loved them because I did. But that love didn't mean sacrifice anymore. I stood up, paid for my drink, and thanked them for meeting me. I didn't wait for permission to leave. I walked out with my spine straight and my chest light. Some boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that finally close. I didn't win by taking something from them. I won by giving myself back. Life didn't turn magical after that meeting. There was no sudden fortune. No dramatic apology tour. No perfect healing arc. What came instead was something quieter. Something real. Stability. I focused on my work. Built routines that didn't revolve around managing other people's emotions. Paid my bills on time. Made choices without asking for approval or bracing for guilt. I noticed how my body changed when it wasn't constantly on alert. How sleep came easier. How laughter felt lighter. How silence no longer felt like punishment. My parents struggled. I knew that. I heard pieces of it through relatives. Through careful updates my sister offered when she thought I needed to know. For the first time, their struggle wasn't mine to carry. And that was the point. I learned that fairness doesn't arrive just because you deserve it. Love doesn't become equal just because you wait long enough. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop making yourself useful to people who only love you when you are. Late one night, I took my diploma off the shelf and held it in my hands. Not as proof of success, but as proof of survival. I earned this without help. I built myself without permission. I chose peace without apology. My name is Marcus Reed. And this is how I got my revenge.